Hello and good evening, everyone. I'm Justin Williams, Associate Professor of History and Director of the African American Studies Program at University of Detroit Mercy. And this is the Congo, Michigan, and You, a forum about the ongoing security crises facing the Democratic Republic of Congo, local efforts to resettle refugees, and some critical reflection on the role our consumption habits play in fueling instability. We want to thank all of you for joining us here virtually in the Detroit area and around the country. But before we get started, we'd like to open with some welcoming remarks from a wonderful ally of the African American Studies program here at University of Detroit Mercy and Dean of the College of Liberal Arts and Education, Jacqueline Barichka.
Thank you so much, Professor Williams. Good evening and welcome. I am Jacqueline Barichka, Dean of the College of Liberal Arts and Education. It is my honor to welcome this evening's guests, Professor Charles Tshimanga-Kashama and Vice President Jado Ndaruhuye, who will present on the Congo, Michigan, and You. As we begin, I wish to thank Professor Justin Williams, who is Associate Professor of History and our new Director of the African American Studies Program, the sponsor of tonight's event. Our college is committed to the practice of radical hospitality to cultivate an inclusive community of belonging premised on the belief that diversity is our strength. Tonight's topic speaks to this commitment and particularly calls us to remember the ongoing struggles, conflicts, and wars that imperil peoples across the globe. Our attention in the current moment is often drawn to Europe and the Middle East, to the war in Ukraine and Gaza. Not often enough are we called to see the same struggles: war, genocide, famine, and refugee crises on the African continent, to places such as South Sudan, Somalia, and the Democratic Republic of Congo, the focus of tonight's discussion. As we consider the violence that accompanies the displacement of peoples then labeled as refugees, those who lose their homes, their villages, their nation states, we are also called to consider the depth of human connection that links peoples in the Congo to those here in Michigan and our city of Detroit, where the pulse of the African diaspora beats particularly strong. Let's pick up that beat tonight to consider how diversity across continents and cultures is our strength. Thank you for being with us this evening.
And thank you once again, Dean Barichka, for your amazing support for the African American Studies program here at University of Detroit Mercy and your work across the university at large. Getting back to tonight's topic, the Democratic Republic of Congo is a massive, diverse country located in the Great Lakes region of Africa with a population of nearly 100 million people. Human Rights Watch calls the humanitarian situation in the resource-rich eastern region of the country dire due to 100 armed groups who have committed atrocities against civilians and loot with impunity, contributing to the displacement and deaths of millions of people. Here to give us context for the complicated historical and political roots of the crisis is Charles Tshimanga-Kashama, Associate Professor in the Department of History at the University of Nevada, Reno. Dr. Tshimanga-Kashama has taught Congolese history all over the world, from Paris to the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, and he is author of Youth, Education, and Society in Congo Kinshasa, 1890 to 1960, co-author of the Bakongo Alliance and the Independence of Belgian Congo, 10 Years of Kongo Nationalism, 1950 to 1960, and both books are published by L'Harmattan in France. And with that, please give a warm welcome to Dr. Charles Tshimanga-Kashama.
Can I go and start my video? Okay. Thank you, Professor Williams. Thank you for the invitation. It's an honor to be with you tonight to share my thoughts on the Congo and to try to shed light on some of the horrific things going on in that country for the last maybe 30 years or so. So I would like to share my screen with you so that you can see. Let me see if I can share. No, it's not this one. Okay. Okay, Professor Williams, could you please help me again with Zoom? I would like to share, but I'm stuck somewhere.
Is the share screen button at the bottom is not working?
No, it's not showing up.
Hmm.
Yeah, can you put it back again, please?
How about now?
No, let me see. Reading view. No, I don't see the link so far. Hmm.
And how about now?
Let me see again. Okay, let me see. Okay, seems that it's working now. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see it.
Oh, great. So I'd like to provide an historical context to take you way, way back to Congolese history, to give you a broad understanding of what has been happening in the Congo. I'm going back to the time of Congolese colonialism. I'm not suggesting that what's going on today is the result of colonialism, but I'm trying to show you the way in which this country, going back to the time of Belgian colonialism, has been at the center of so many atrocities. So, let me see. Okay. So, in this presentation, I'd like to shed some light on the roots of the political and security crisis facing this country since 1996. And hopefully, by the end of this talk, this will also provide you some understanding why so many Congolese have left their country and settled not only in Michigan, but in other states in the United States of America. So here is the map of the Congo. As you can see, this is this big country here in Central Africa. It was colonized by Belgium. It's huge. It's 80 times the size of Belgium, the colonizer. And it has more than 240 ethnic groups, or what you might call in the United States tribes. So huge country, 80 times the size of Belgium, or 4 times the size of a country such as France. So this is one of the pictures showing you some of the atrocities that happened between 1885 and 1900. 1885, as you know by now, is the time of the Berlin Conference in Germany, when European countries decided to colonize Africa. At the time, the Congo was a private property of the Belgian King Leopold II. And back then already, what he wanted to do was for the Congolese to provide him with rubber, because in the late 19th century, the Industrial Revolution led to innovation. In Europe, Europeans began making cars. Cars needed rubbers to make the wheels needed to drive this car. And it happened that in the Congo, they had plenty of rubber, and King Leopold II, who wanted to make a quick profit from his colony in the Congo, began asking the Congolese to bring enough rubber. And when they did not bring enough, they cut their hand. So in this picture, you can see some of the picture Congolese getting rubbers in the forest, while King Leopold II was getting all of the money coming from the sale of the rubber from the Congo. So, and then, so I'm shifting quickly. So what I'm trying to say here is that at the time of Belgian colonialism, they said it was a civilizing mission. However, Belgium never introduced values seen in its own country, such as human rights, democracy, and so on. So the Congolese did not have the right to vote. Only in I think 3 years before Congolese independence, they began organizing very quickly some type of democracy. And it led in 1960 to the election that led Patrice Lumumba to become Congolese prime minister. So in this picture, you can see, this is the picture on the left side of my slide. Lumumba is giving a speech. King Baudouin of Belgium is seated there. So when he came, he was saying that Belgian colonialism was a great experience for the Congolese, and Lumumba refuted what he was saying, which was the first clash between the two sides. And then I put this picture of this Congolese musician, Grand Calais. He released the song called Independence Cha-Cha, which has become a rallying cry for the entire African continent, because around 1960, most Africa became independent, and the song captured that moment. So Congolese were singing, chanting, celebrating their freedom from Belgian colonialism. However, at the same time, powerful forces were plotting behind the scene to stop the country from taking a new direction. I want to remind you here of one thing. We are living at the time of the Cold War. 1945 was the end of the Second World War. The first nuclear weapon used by the United States was made with uranium coming from the Congo. And since then, the US wanted the Congo to be on Congolese side. And when Africa became independent, the two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union, were fighting across the globe, each one of them trying to keep their own ideas. On the one hand, we have capitalism led by the US and its allies. And on the other hand, we had the Soviet Union trying or spreading communism across Africa. So countries such as Angola, for example, was a communist country, Angola, which is close to the Congo. So the two countries were engaging each other in Africa, but they never fought openly on African soil. So what we will see is that Lumumba becoming prime minister was already seen as a threat to Western interest in the Congo. So I have to say this. Lumumba was a nationalist and a Pan-Africanist. What he wanted to do was to build a Congolese nation based on Pan-Africanist ideas, and he wanted to lead the country in a different direction than the one suggested by the Europeans. So 1960, Lumumba is the prime minister, and Mr. Joseph Kasavubu, you can see the picture here, was the president. So Lumumba began his work on June 30th, the day of the independence, but very quickly they launched powerful forces to stop him. And we saw the gentleman called Mobutu moved in less than 3 months after Lumumba became prime minister. Mobutu made his first coup in September of 1960. So the coup was meant to remove Lumumba from office and to keep Kasavubu. And then Lumumba was placed into a house arrest. He tried to flee Leopoldville, which is today Kinshasa, to join his followers on the eastern side of the country. And they chased him, they arrested him. And also at the same time, as you can see on this map, some provinces decided to secede, such as the Katanga and the Sud Kasai. And then during the first years of Congo's independence between 1960 and 1965, we will see so many other groups taking over huge provinces, such as this one, government of Gizenga. In the Katanga, we had Moïse Chombe. In Sud Kasai, we had Kalonji. So it was extremely difficult for this country to govern itself. So here is on this picture on the left, Mobutu is the one who launched this chase to get Lumumba. On the right side. This is the arrestation of Lumumba and his close advisors. They were arrested and sent back to Kinshasa. And once they arrived in Kinshasa, they were sent to Katanga, where they knew he was going to get killed. And by the way, he was killed once he arrived in Katanga. Belgian archives have revealed some of these atrocities, especially with the book written by a Belgian scholar called The Assassination of Lumumba. So you see a prime minister being elected, taken out of the office and killed, and for a very long time, they say that Lumumba was killed by other Congolese because of ethnic tensions between his tribe and those of the Katanga people, which was not true. So, and then in 1965, Mobutu himself decided to make a second coup. And then he became president. He was a very close ally of the United States. As you can see on this picture, he's here with President Ronald Reagan during one of his visits to Washington, D.C. So now he's in charge. He ran the country for 32 years, between 1965 to 1992. As you could imagine, a president spending so much time, 32 years into the office, cannot improve the well-being of his fellow citizens. Because under Mobutu, the Congo has seen a huge decline. First of all, he renamed the country Zaire in 1971. He installed a dictatorship, so he banned democracy in the Congo, installing a dictatorship. We saw nepotism we saw the spread of corruption in the Congo, and then also this led to the complete state collapse. The Congolese state collapsed in the second half of the 1980s. All of this led to a lot of grievances from the Congolese people who asked him to leave the office, but he refused to leave. And then 1989, with the collapse of the Berlin Wall in Germany, and then also followed by the collapse of the Soviet Union, that was the end of the Cold War. Now, his Mobutu's Western allies told him, they said, okay, we no longer need you. We were supporting you to stop the spread of communism in Africa. Now we want you to become a Democrat. He said to them, I don't know how it works, democracy. So at the time President Clinton was elected, he was in the White House, and then he told Mobutu, you have to leave. But Mobutu did not understand what they were saying to him. But it was also in the middle of a lot of pressure coming from the Congolese themselves. So in 1990, they put in place what they called in French, Conférence Nationale Souveraine, a huge conference putting together opposition and Mobutu's ally to try to find a way forward in order to put a country in a democratic path. He resisted all of this. And then at the same time happened the Rwandan genocide in 1994. So I would like you to understand many pieces of the puzzle here. The collapse of the state under Mobutu Sese Seko, but external factors coming from a neighboring country will really impact the Congolese trajectory. So 1996, so the Rwandan genocide, 1994. Following the Rwandan genocide, people fleeing Rwanda, thousands and thousands of people fled Rwanda and reached Eastern Congo. So the people who did the genocide, the inter-armed or the Hutu inter-armed militia fled into the Congo, Eastern Congolese provinces. So Mr. Kagame said, I cannot allow these people to stay there. I have to go after them. So first of all, I hope you see all the Sudan, a huge influx of refugees coming from Rwanda, getting into the Congo, raising tensions within the Congolese population. And then followed by that, Mr. Kagame saying, I cannot allow this inter-armed to stay in the Congo, because if I do not go after them, I know someday they will come back to take me out of the office. So they launched the first Congo War. Rwandan troops and Uganda crossed the border. That was the beginning of the first Congo War, which lasted between October 1996 until May 1997. So at the time, all of these forces coming from neighboring countries, when they saw that the Congolese army was not fit to stop them from getting into their country, they decided, they said, okay, we are here, why don't we just move forward? So they moved forward and they reached Kinshasa, Congolese capital, which is far away from the eastern provinces of the Congo. And then when he was arriving there, Mobutu fled the country. He went to, first of all, I think he went to France, and then after that, he went to Morocco, where he died. So now, Rwandan troops created groups such as the AFDL, led by Laurent Désiré Kabila, the father of the Jado president Joseph Kabila. And Laurent Désiré Kabila will become president in May 1997. So once he arrived in Kinshasa, he named James Kabarebe #1 of the Congolese army. So James Kabarebe is a Rwandan. So they tried to control Laurent Désiré Kabila. Congolese were not happy because they told Laurent Désiré Kabila, they said, you came with foreigners, please ask them to show us a bill. We will pay them for the help they gave us, but we have to run our country by ourselves. So Kabila, the father, asked Rwandan to go back to Rwanda. They were not happy. So they went back to Rwanda. And then in August of 1998, they began the Second Congo War, which ended in 2003. So the war was extremely bloody. And we, at the time, we saw so many people. So estimates suggested that more than 6 million, some people talked about the 10 million deaths since the war began in 1996. At the time when the Second Congo War began, half of the country was occupied by foreign troops from Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, but also other countries got involved, such as Angola. And then they violated numerous human rights, notably violence against women. So according to estimate and evidence, more than 500,000 cases of rape of Congolese women have been recorded. So brutal war. So on this map, let me do this. So you can see this is the Congo. All of this area on the eastern side, you can see Burundi, Rwanda, and Uganda here. So they got here and then they invaded, they occupied all of these territories in the Congo, which meant that during the time of fighting, people are fleeing. They are fleeing. People are displaced within their own country, but also by fleeing, they will reach neighboring countries. So this map shows you some of the armed groups fighting on Congolese soil. We have foreign troops, but also we had many more so-called rebel groups who intervened and began fighting on Congolese soil. As we speak today, estimates suggest that there are about more than 100 armed groups on the eastern side of the Congo, which gives you an idea. And you might be wondering why the Congo is not able to kick them out of their territory. It's because since Mobutu was president, the country has been weakened. The Congo doesn't have a strong military. And one of the things I mentioned earlier, that James Kabarebe, the Rwandan man who led the Congolese army. By the way, after that, he became Rwandan Minister of Defense when he went back to Rwanda. James Kabarebe, they did this. Every time there was a war, they said, we are going to stop the war, but one of the conditions was that we need to merge our troops. So we saw many people who were fighting yesterday on different sides joining the Congolese army. And Rwanda also used this to inject thousands and thousands of its own soldiers within the Congolese army, weakening its capacity to go fight on the eastern side of the Congolese territory. So now, people have been raising questions about this war. Some people said that the Congo wars are civil wars. Some say that the Congo wars liberated the country from dictatorship. That was what Laurent Désiré Kabila said when he became president in May 1997. But all of these explanations do not give us enough to understand exactly what's going on. The Congolese war are not civil war, and the Congolese war were not really a war of liberation, because Laurent Désiré Kabila was not leading Congolese forces to oust Mobutu from the office. Instead, he was backed by foreign troops, Uganda and Rwanda, to take power in Kinshasa. Only when he arrived in Kinshasa, in the capital, that's when Laurent Désiré Kabila decided to ask them to leave the country, but he never led any insurrection from Congolese people. So that's the first thing I'd like to mention here. Some explanations suggested that the Congo wars are waged by numerous forces that seek to access Congo's natural resources. And I will explain this. So we need to understand that there are intertwining factors, and interlocking forces should be examined. There are many, to understand the Congo, first of all, we need to understand that they are extremely, extremely confusing and complex. We should understand the conflation of internal factors, but also external factors. I'd like to begin with internal factor. First of all, the collapse of the Congolese state and its consequences. When Mobutu was president, especially in the last years of his presidency, everything had collapsed. Almost everything. No bureaucracy providing basic services to the Congolese people, no army to defend the country, nothing. So all of this played a huge role, and that's why when neighboring countries decided to get into the Congo, they found no troops on the other side, on the Congolese side, to stop them from getting into the Congo. And then another explanation is that there are tensions between Banyarwanda, people of Rwandan descent, and indigenous communities in Eastern Congo. Here we have the Kivu provinces have been a place with a lot of tensions. There are a lot of people living in those areas, so access to land has become extremely difficult, and people are competing about this. And all of this also led to many of the tensions seen in eastern side of the Congolese Republic. So what I'm suggesting mostly about this is that since achieving independence, the Congo's political vulnerability, instability, and authoritarian tendencies can be attributed to tensions that exist over the concept of the nation state and the inability of the political culture to imagine the nation in constructive and democratic terms. I go on to say that on the one hand, there is the post-independence political class that has stubbornly held on to imperial assumptions. On the other hand, there is Congolese civil society and the diaspora who are suggesting creative alternatives, but for whom power has proved elusive. What I'm saying here is that when the country became independent, only Lumumba tried to build a new type of nation that would have been totally different from the colonial state inherited from Belgium. Since then, because Mobutu decided to play the role of what Fred Cooper called a gatekeeper state, being the protégé of Western countries, helping them to remain into the office. Mobutu has stopped the project of building a nationalist state. And since then, Congolese are still trying to find a way to imagine something on their own. And so far, they have not achieved that. So I put some of the names of Congolese former president. So during Belgian colonialism, they invented the concept of ethnicism, for example, using what was called anthropometry, scientific ethnism, and a hierarchy of ethnic groups. We saw this, they did this in Rwanda between Hutu and Tutsi. They did this also in the Congo between other ethnic groups. And all of this, when they left, all of this led to many of the tensions seen in the Congo. So now, this map shows you some of the armed groups. You can see on this side, that's where the fighting are taking place. So again, since 1996, people have been fighting. And while fighting, people are being killed. Women have been raped and are still being raped. People are displaced within the Congolese territory. And many of them are fleeing, reaching neighboring countries. You can see Rwanda, Uganda, Burundi, Tanzania, Central African Republic, and so on. So I'm going back to the Rwandan genocide to give you a clear idea and the way in which the war driven by neighboring countries, rebel groups and different actors are still playing in the Congo, because even to this day, the Congo is still struggling to stop the violence on its territory. I have to mention the role played by the United Nations, because they sent peacekeepers, which is called MONUSCO. They have been there for a while, for more than 25 years. And recently in 2022, Mr. Guterres, the head of the United Nations, said to the Congolese government, he said to them, we cannot continue fighting the M23, one of the main group the Congolese are fighting, because they have sophisticated weapons that we don't have. So as you could imagine, this is a body sent by the United Nations. So they are saying that they don't have enough weapons to go fight against a rebel group that is located in the Kivu. So, which shows you also the inability of the international community to stop the fighting. On the other hand, the MONUSCO troops have been caught in a lot of abuses, impregnating Congolese women. I said women, I should say Congolese girls. And many of them also engaging in shady businesses. I will talk about in the coming minutes. So in this map, you can see in 2009, Howard French wrote this piece in the New York Review called Kagame's Hidden War in the Congo. So he was explaining the way in which Kagame, the Rwanda's president, has been extremely active, fueling the war in the Congo. So using always the excuse. So Kagame is saying this: the Hutu who fled the Rwanda, who did the genocide, they are still in the Congo. Therefore, as long as they are there, we can go into the Congo and go after them. Now, some scholars say, well, but why don't you sign peace deal with the Hutu so that they can go back in Rwanda and deal with them in your own territory? So that's for the last maybe 30 years, since close to 30 years, since 1996, that is the narrative used by Mr. Kagame to justify its war onto Congolese territory. So here I'm explaining the construction of Tutsi and Hutu identities during Belgian colonialism, and the construction of identity politics in Rwanda, Burundi, Uganda, and here Congo, and how all of this has played into what's going on even today in the Congo. Now, some experts suggested that the Congo War is driven by economic interest. Indeed, the United Nations report on the illegal exploitation of natural resources found out that strategic minerals such as uranium, coltan, cobalt, and oil have been part of this ongoing invasion of the Congo by its neighbor. When they invade, they loot so that they can improve their own economic interest. Some of the countries, Rwanda, Uganda, are now, for example, exporting coltan, even though they don't have this raw material on their own territory. I put this map to show you this raw material, which is called coltan. So the coltan is in the Kivu province here. And the Congo, you can see other raw materials such as copper and cobalt. So I would like to focus on these two raw materials, coltan and cobalt. As you know, again, the world is going through another industrial revolution because we are moving away from fossil fuels into electric cars. And to build and drive electric cars, we need cobalt. Cobalt is used to make the batteries that we use to drive electric cars. And the Congo has plenty of cobalt. Coltan is the raw material used in many of our devices, and I mentioned some of them. I will talk about them. So coltan is short for columbite tantalite, a black tar-like mineral found in major quantities in the Congo. The Congo has between 64 and 80% of the world's coltan. And when it's refined, it becomes a heat-resistant powder that can hold a high electric charge. So today, if we are using our cell phone, laptop, many of the devices that we have, it's thanks to, it's because of this raw material that is found in the Congo. And as I show you on this map, it's here at the border with Rwanda and Uganda. And when they cross the border, they got there, they get this raw material, and they began exploiting. So this is a picture of this raw material, coltan. If you have a few kilos, you might become rich because it's extremely used in the modern world for the many of the things that we are using today. So, so it stores energy or capacitors used in vast array of small electronic devices, especially in cell phones, laptop computers, pagers, and other electronic devices. So this is the other devices used to, thanks to coltan, laptop computers, a cell phone, rocket, X-ray, and so on. So now I put this picture to show you how people are displaced in the Congo. So this one is happening as we speak today. About 1 million people have been displaced internally within the Congolese territory because the fighting, as we speak, the fighting continue between the Congo and rebels group. And that's why the Congo has one of the highest rates of internal displacement in the world. And as I said, in the first half of 2023, nearly 1 million new displaced people in DR Congo. So this is only the first half of this year, 2023. So and then, of course, we have refugees. This is the Congo. When they flee, they reach many of their neighboring countries, of course, because they are next door. We have a number of Congolese living in the neighboring countries. And then we have also a number of Congolese living abroad, in France, in Belgium, in UK, in the United States. I came across this map. This one was made in 2013. They say that in Michigan had about between 300 and 500 refugees. But I was talking to Professor Williams, who said to me that today, 10 years later, there are about 8,000 refugees in Michigan. So you see, the war is pushing these people to flee their countries. You might be wondering why the international community is not doing enough. There is a book that was released this year or last year, suggesting that even the international communities, they also have a stake seeing the war continue in the Congo. So now, one of the big questions is, how is the Congo going to deal with this? Can the Congo continue on this path of wars and so on? That's the big question that is asked to the Congolese. Hopefully, they will come together. It seems to me that one of the biggest weaknesses is that the Congolese are extremely divided. They cannot come together, especially the political class. They cannot come together and fix the issues facing their country in order to stop the war, because they are always fighting each other. Because each one of them want to get a piece of the pie. So maybe someday we will go back to Lumumba's project of creating a nationalist and Pan-Africanist project, so that the Congo can move away from many of the issues this country is facing. One of the biggest challenges to build a strong military that would really protect the country. The current president, I was watching some of the news from the Congo. They have created 12 new brigades for about 120,000 new troops. I think that if they continue like this, they can maybe someday end the violence. And then they need also to come to terms with many of the issues within their countries, how to bring the country together. how to ease tensions between different ethnic groups. That some of the challenges facing the Congo, we hope that they will get there, but it's not an easy task because it has been going on for the almost 30 years since 1996. So that's what I wanted to share with you. I'm more than happy to answer to any questions you might have about this topic. Thank you.
Thank you for Professor Tshimanga-Kashama. If we have some time at the end, I'll definitely open the floor for some questions, and we can, have a little bit of interaction with the audience.
Great.
And you'll just want to stop sharing.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I also want to thank you very much also for sharing such a complex and expansive story with our viewers, and being able to condense that with so many different actors, state actors, non-state actors, right, resources, geography. So I just want to applaud you for really making that really digestible for everyone.
Sure.
So, since we live in an interconnected world, and Professor Kashama touched on this when he talked about the 8,000 refugees that are living in Michigan, particularly around the Grand Rapids area, we want to really sort of ground the historical and political context for the Democratic Republic of Congo in things that we're experiencing here in Michigan. And at the forefront of efforts of resettling refugees is Bethany Christian Services. It's a global nonprofit that provides social services for families in need. Here to tell us more about their work is Jado Ndaruhuye, Vice President of the Banyamulenge in the United States, a group that has suffered severe persecution by rebel groups and the Congolese government. He is also Refugee Public Health Community Engagement Coordinator at Bethany Christian Services in Michigan. Welcome, Mr. Ndaruhuye. Please tell us about your important and courageous work.
Thank you so much, Justin. You will bear with me if my network is not stable a little bit. And I thank my friend, my colleague, Charles Tshimanga, professor, who shared a really accurate information about the history of our country. And before I jump into our work as Bethany Christian Services, I want just to mention one thing that about the history that Charles talked about, is about the sense of more communities conflict in DRC versus some community in eastern part of Congo where the Tutsi Congolese are persecuted. And there is a very big issue about the hate speech where the Tutsi Congolese are persecuted and are being banned and consume their bodies. So recently on 9th November 2023, 9th November, it's like this month, they stoned and banned my cousin in Goma, and he was in FRDC, DRC Army. He was a lieutenant in DRC Army, and other people was banned in Kalemi, in South Kivu as well. So recently, 7 years from now back, 387 villages of Tutsi Banyamulenge community has been banned, and 500,000 cows of Banyamulenge Tutsis has been looted. And the only reason, because they are Kinyarwanda speaker dialects, and they connect them with the Rwanda government, Rwanda country, yet they are not Rwandan, they are Congolese. But our fellow Congolese don't feel like the Tutsis Congolese are Congolese to be recognized as Congolese, because from the history that we have from our grandparents, the first person migrated from Burundi, Uganda, Rwanda, Tanzania to Congo in our tribe was in 70s, 85, like that. So now they are trying a community cleansing, like chasing them away from Congo to go back to Rwanda. That's why the original conflict or source of conflict in DRC and the labor groups. So you will find like all these Tutsi Congolese soldiers, they are called infiltration. They infiltrate. They are called them like Rwandans, while they are not Rwandans because they look the way they look. Morphology Tutsis. So there's another thing that Charles Tshimanga left behind a little bit about the whole story, about background of our country. All the source of the conflict in Congo is very accurate, as Charles mentioned. Thank you so much. So due to the way Bethany Christian Services is dealing with the refugees, I need to take over. If I can share my screen.
Yes, you should have the ability to share.
Oh. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Good. Yeah, this is my position at Bethany Christian Services, Refugee Public Health Community Engagement Coordinator, and I'm the Vice President of Congolese Banyamulenge in the United States. I'm just going to present you quickly about the introduction about that, refugee resettlement experiences, and the top 10 states that resettle refugees. And first, all these, this is the agenda that I'm going to talk about. I need to wrap up because the time is not good on my side. As you can see, good, okay. Yeah, most of the refugees flee their country of origin to relatively safe neighboring countries in the refugee camps. And the UNHCR starts processing the cases and submit referrals to the US or in the other eligible countries from potential resettlement. The resettlement is in the US, in Europe, in Australia, in Canada, and approximately this process takes between 10 and 26 years in refugee camps. This is the whole process of resettlement that the refugees pass through. The refugees flee their country of origin, and then unable to live in the second country, they just less than 1% of refugees referred to the resettlement. And after picking this 1% of the refugees in the refugee camp, only 1% get resettlement. The USCIS interviews, and then multiple security checks continues, and then healthy screening, and then they get here. That is the whole journey that we pass through in order to get here in America or in Europe or in Canada. And this process from fleeing the country of, the 10 to 26 years in refugee camps start here for the second level, unable to live in the second country. So from here to here, it takes 10 to 26 years to get here. And as Tshimanga said, the top 10 of the states that resettled, California, Washington, Texas, New York, Michigan, only for 1 year, 493 families, not people. These are families. And the average of our African or Congolese family, the average is like 6 people per household. And 5 refugees resettlement agencies in Michigan is Bethany Christian Services in Grand Rapids, and Kalamazoo and Lansing is our office. Jewish Families Services and Washington County, Samaritas, all these other resettlement agencies, we work together to help the refugees to be resettled. Their first day, what we do for their first day arriving in America, our case manager welcome the family at the airport, and the co-sponsor pick up their friends. This is, we call them co-sponsor, or we call them the US tie. The US tie. If you are selected to come in America or in Canada or in Europe, you flag a family member or relative that it can receive you while you get there. So, and then we help them with a brief orientation where we need to show them how to use the stove, how to use the bathroom, the shower, all these equipment for the house, because the house in America is totally different from the refugee tents that they have been to. So we gave them that brief orientation about how to use their house. And some of the services that Bethany Christian Services provides is the resettlement. We help them to resettle the refugees in West Michigan 90 days, like 3 months. And then we help them. We help them in employment program. It shows me like my internet connection is unstable. Can you hear me?
There was a little bit of an interruption, so if you could just repeat what you said, maybe for the last 10 seconds.
Okay, good. Yeah, actually we have five program, like a resettlement, post-resettlement, employment program. Or we help them to find a job. We help them to find the legal documents, social security, or the green cards, all these legal documents too, so that they can get a job. And we connect with them. We connect the refugees with the employers and companies, mainly are in factories, and a comprehensive medical care and a refugee foster care. These are the programs that we give to our refugees. And the challenges that they are facing mainly the parents, like the system and the language barrier at the hospital, police, in all services that they need. So the language barrier is very key, and we thank the US government, which is they are doing a very good job for providing the interpreters, so that they can serve well the refugees and police, even the police, they have interpreters. So they rely on their children for everything. It makes like them less valued. The children help their parents instead of the parents helps the children. The opposite of back from home scenario. So you find like the children adapt very well, very quickly for the language. And then we found like some confidential information, maybe from the hospital. So the children need to translate for their parents, and then they feel like not comfortable for that. And then counting the loss of change, social, economic, cultural, vocational, all this stuff, like economic things. You find like even in nutrition, you find like the parents, they want African food, and the children, they want American food. And then the budget of the economy increases as well, as the challenges that they are facing, the parents. Food, language. So it's really challenging for the refugees who have never seen the snow, and then he's now he's required like to drive during the snow, those weather things, like It's really challenging for them, and learning new values, independent versus interdependent. So back home, you find like is your parents and what they contribute in your life. But here in America, you are totally independent. All the struggle, you are in a new world. They don't know where to allocate, where they are located. Are they Africans? They are African Americans, are Black. So even the work to feel, you will find them like, where will I put myself here? Like, am I African American, Black, and what? So that conflict of identity crisis is an issue for them as well. So finding community, that's why we found some refugees get in America, for instance, in Iowa or in Illinois or in Ohio, but they request the transfer to come in Michigan or to go to Texas because their community lives there, so that he can find himself in the community where he belongs. You see, we found like back and forth of refugees traveling, moving from one state to another where you can find the community. So another challenge is the limited income, expensive school supplies, trips, and what, all these school requirements. Disturbance, and yeah, and the lastly, not least, unresolved my internet connection. I was talking unresolved trauma or mental health issues at home. So as I said before, you remember that our refugees spent 10 to 26 years in refugee camps. There is a trauma they bring here in America, and there is a trauma that they meet. So all these trauma that the families, the household are facing. So they are trauma that since they fled their countries, all these years, and then when they get here, they got another trauma about all these languages, the system barrier, and the other stuff. It's really disturbing to the refugee level. And for the children, the barrier challenges that they are facing is challenging language barrier, communication with the peer and teachers. This is a very serious problem that we are receiving at Bethany Christian Services. And bullying and discrimination from peers and teachers. Weak academic support at home is a challenge because most of the parents are not educated. So, and then they have another barrier of language. So the student don't get those support from the parents. While other host community here, they don't have that problem of language, and even the parents support their children. But for us, the communities, the refugees, we do still having a problem about this academic support at home. So poor socialization process, and another challenge is in older kids, pressure to contribute to the family purpose. We found like most of the children of 18, 19, 20, 21, they quit the school. They quit the school so that they go to the factory so that they can work for their family. So they contribute for these mortgages or apartments to pay the rent or other supporting their families back home. So you will find like the parents are encouraging their children of 18, 19, 20 years to leave, to quit the school, to come to work and then support their parents. It's a really challenging thing. So community safety, relationship between American traffic police, you have seen the problem of Patrick Luyoya. So there is a culture shocks from back home versus American system, where the refugees are not yet like getting in. One of the scenario that I want to share with you is like, for instance, in policing, when the police back home, the difference between the police interaction in most of African countries versus America, this is a very serious problem that we are facing. We are trying like to equip or train to empower our community here so that they know the difference between of these two systems. So the transition from African system to American system, that is what is creating incidents. We found, for instance, all these Patrick Luyoya was talking about, you will find like, for example, back home, when the police stops you, you get out in your car and then you meet the police and then you tell him what is going on, what happened to your family. Maybe I'm driving so fast because my mom is sick and then she's calling me to take her to a hospital. And then maybe he may give you a ticket or not, but you interact. That is African culture. So you interact with the police outside the car. But here in America, you will find like the police stops you, you need to stay in your car, putting your arm in your driving wheel, don't move. So that different system transition creates incidents. That's why we are encouraging the police to give us time to empower our community. And then because the education is not an overnight thing, so we need to be patient so that we can help the refugees to transition from African culture to American, to adopt like the American system. So another scenario is about like the hospitals, like doctors, the culture shocks. When someone is sick, a refugee is sick back home, he spends like 2 hours with a doctor, talking with the doctor, or an hour. But here in America, we find like a doctor is like second, like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then I'm done. This is just prescription of your medication that you need to take, and then that's it. And then you find like the refugees said, the American system is not, maybe they don't know my illness. That's why they don't, because our refugees, us as refugees, we are not familiar with like a very quick services, because here we have equipment where it can test from your blood. They can know all the things that we are going through. There is equipment, medical equipment, that can just a second to describe what you are going through, what you are suffering from. But back home, you need to talk to the doctor like hours so that he can just identify what is going on and then write something. So that some, a very few numbers goes back in Africa to meet their doctors, like in Kenya or Uganda or in Rwanda or in Burundi. They go back because they want to meet that doctor who can spend time with him so that he can tell him like all the story of his illness. So that time, like to empower the refugees, that telling them the 2 hours spent in Africa is equal to 15 minutes you can spend with the American doctor here, and then he can find what the problem that you have about your illness. So all these education thing that is going through Bethany Christian Services, we create community engagement activities that we need to make a campaign and empowerment to the refugees so that they feel comfortable and feel like more well served. For the communities, we are encouraging the communities or institutions like you to get to know refugees and immigrants by volunteering, and to try to walk in our shoes, knowing that those refugees need your support. They need you to understand them. They need a second hand. They need you to feel what they feel. Like they spent like 10 to 26 years in the refugee camps, and they have those barrier of languages. Even myself, you can hear I have an accent, so the English is my fourth language. So I still have some bubbles in American system as well. So imagine my parents, imagine my grandparents who came in America. Imagine all those refugees who are coming. It's a very big struggle. Imagine if I wrote you a letter in Kinyarwanda or in Kiswahili or in Lingala. You can't get anything. That's this experience that the refugees are facing with the mailbox. They get tons of the papers, instructions in mailbox, and most of them are missing deadlines because they didn't understand what the notice says, like the letters says. They miss a lot of things because of lack of that language thing. So we are encouraging you to host information meeting for your staff, community groups like this. This is very, 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 very good. That's why I was much more motivated to come and participate in this webinar, because it's really something that I'm encouraging other institutions, even the court, the police. We do more events like this so that they can get well informed about the refugees' struggle. So, and to attend no commitment information meeting to learn about the way we come to welcome and support refugees and immigrants. This is very cool. And schedule collaborative meeting with the Bethany Christian Services and the other resettlement agencies like the Samaritans and the other agencies, in order to know the refugees, because we need to build the society where we have one culture, we have one vision, American dream. Everybody, I tend to not calling ourselves as refugees. I tend to call ourselves as a new American. We are new American. We need to go through this pathway to be good American, good citizens, and then we reach to the American dream. So to share the flyers, social media posts, and to be the voice of a community for the refugees as well. So thank you so much. And if you have any question, maybe Justin can share my email. If you have any question, you can reach out to me, or any invitation that I would be happy to respond. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jado. And we really appreciate the amazing work that you're doing at Bethany Christian Services. And I'm going to borrow your phrase, new Americans. I like that. It's great. For those of you in the audience, do you have any questions that you'd like to put in the chat, and we can pose them to the panel? We should have, like 6 or 7 minutes, so we can get a couple of questions in. And Professor Tshimanga-Kashama, did you have something that you wanted to follow up on in the meantime?
Okay. Yeah, just a quick comment about what Jado said about the Banyamulenge. I'll start my video. Yes, I'm really sorry about his family. This is the kind of violence the Congolese have to put behind them. We cannot continue with this kind of violence. As an historian, I read what the Belgians did. Before 1885, there is no question that populations moved from the two sides of what has become borders from Belgium. So, but I have no evidence as an historian, because Jado mentioned he went back to the 1700s. I have no evidence of that. And also, so that's why I wanted to say we need to be careful, because as we speak, Paul Kagame, Rwanda's president, is talking about a greater Rwanda that will incorporate the two Kivus, which lead Congolese to become extremely nervous about Rwanda's ambitions in the Congo. what I read in the Belgian archives is that following the First World War, the First or the Second World War, Germany lost the war. Rwanda and Burundi were Germany's colonies. So the winners took they said to Germany, you have to pay reparations. They took Rwanda and Burundi, they gave them to Belgium, and then Tanzania to UK. Now, in the course of the following years, Belgium needed laborers. So they went to Rwanda. They asked Tutsi and Hutu to go work on plantations in Eastern Congo. That was the beginning of the first migrations at the time of Belgian colonialism. So when Mobutu became president, he named Bisengimana Rwema as his chief of staff, director de cabinet. And thanks to Bisengimana, he also helped other Banyamulenge to become Congolese. Now, when the war began, Mobutu was extremely weak. And in order to recover, because Rwanda was attacking the Congo, he tried to use ethnic tensions against the Banyamulenge, which led to a lot of tensions since then. Today, as we, and that issue is still there. So with the influx of thousands and thousands of migrants coming from Rwanda when the war began in 1996, it exacerbated tensions in the Kivu, where land is really scarce. So, and since then, we have seen these tensions against the Banyamulenge, and the M23 is made up of the Tutsi population. So the issue here is this: as we speak, in the Congolese government of today, we have Banyamulenge ministers. We have Banyamulenge generals, colonels. So they are incorporated into the political system. And my view is that only a political solution could help the Congo fix those issues. Though the Banyamulenge, as Congolese, they have to remain in the Congo, which is their country, and the Congo has to protect them. We understand that since land is scarce in the Kivu, it raises questions, because we have also, we don't have only Tutsi in the Kivus, we have the Nande and other ethnic groups. So how do you share land? Because the people said, okay, your grandparents came during Belgian colonialism. This is our land. So how do you share this land? That has been one of the big questions in this ongoing struggle. But since the Congolese government also is extremely weak, so far they haven't been able to find a better solution for all of this. So that's why, as I said, Jado, Kagame is not helping also in this issue, because Kagame, by always coming saying, oh, for example, he said, Tutsi are being persecuted in the Congo. It's my job to go save them. But at the same time, Kagame has committed a lot of crimes in the Congo. The 6 million Congolese dead, Kagame is responsible for this. So how do you square all of this? So that's why when I said the international community did not help in the Congo, because if they want really to help, first of all, they need to stop the fighting. You see, today we are talking about Ukraine. Russia invaded Ukraine. Western countries sent $100 billion to help Ukraine. But in the Congo, Rwanda has been attacking the Congo since 1996 without any meaningful effort to stop this. That's why the Congolese are also mad at many of the policies coming from Western countries. So again, as an historian, I do recall Belgians taking control of Rwanda and Burundi, asking Rwandans to go work in the Congo. I don't know if it was, they began doing this in the 1920s or 1930s. And these people who were born in the Congo, and I don't have all of the details of the Congolese constitution, but it seems to me that they are Congolese. So there is no reason to deny them their Congolese citizenship. So I just wanted to clarify this.
Professor Charles, thank you so much for your contribution, and I do respect your history, and you have a very good content too about the history of our country, and you have a very big accuracy about all the things that you are sharing. The one thing that I can share with you, maybe it will be your next research, maybe you may just work on, is the Tutsi Congolese. They came in 3 phases. One,
that's what Kagame is saying, and he's talking about this idea of Greater Rwanda, which makes Congolese.
I'm not a politician. I'm not a politician. I'm just going to share with you the history that I know myself. I'm leading people here in America. I know the story of my community. So Banyamulenge, the term Banyamulenge, they are in Congo before the Congo becomes Congo, before the colony. The Banyamulenge.
We heard about Banyamulenge only recently. In the past,
can you give me a
in the past, we
can
know
you give
about
me time like to
Tutsi and Hutu. The term Banyamulenge is used only recently.
I want to explain you, sir.
No, this like for this particular point, Jado, would you could you like quickly just take like a little bit, just like a short amount of time to respond, because we actually have to wrap up in the interest of time. Because I know
I want just to mention one thing.
Yeah, this is a discussion I know that both of you could have for like quite a while.
Yeah, I want just to mention one thing. The Banyamulenge community were in Congo before the Congo became a Congo. That is number one. That's why it's not negotiable. It's not that something there. Banyamulenge are in Congo before Congo becomes Congo. That's number one. Number two, there are other Tutsis who came in Congo in 1930, as Professor Tshimanga said, in 1930. There are Tutsis who came in Congo in 1930. Those Tutsis are from northern Kivu. All these Bosco Ntaganda, Laurent Kunda, Makenga, all these M23 things, labels Tutsis, right? Their parents came for plantation in Congo in 1930. Other people, Tutsis, came in Congo in 1959. 1959, where the Tutsis were fled from Rwanda to Congo because the Hutu power, the Hutu regime in Rwanda fled them, where even Kagame fled. He was 2 years old. He went in Uganda. Other Tutsis, Rwandans, came in Congo in 1959. That is Bisengimana. Bisengimana is not Munyamulenge. Bisengimana, he was a Rwandan who fled in 1959. You can't compare those other two Tutsis to Banyamulenges. Banyamulenge were there before the Congo became Congo. So you need to make a good research about that. And that's why the war may not end in Congo if the Banyamulenge are not recognized as Congolese as others. That is the problem. And we find like my uncles are generals, colonels, being called like infiltration. They infiltrated the Congolese army. How can you call me, I infiltrated in my own army in DRC? No. So not all Tutsis are Rwandese. That is something that Congo we need to fix ourselves. All Tutsis are not Rwandan. We are not Rwandans at all. And that's why you give a pretext to Kagame to come in Congo to come to protect Tutsis who looks like him, But if we can manage our problem in Congo and being Congo and having inclusion and inclusion and diverse, we accept each other in Congo, no one can just come outside and come to disturb our country. But that discrimination, my uncle has been burned and has been consumed his body. So if that violation can continue, I'm not sure that things will be easier. So we need to manage our stuff as Congolese ourselves. And then you see, for instance, for Mobutu regime, we didn't had all these issues about the Tutsi and the other Congolese in Zaire. No, he built a very protective system where everybody was feeling Zairois as from Zaire. But from these Congo things, discrimination of Tutsis, Congolese, this is a very big deal. This is a very big deal. And then we need to make sure that the institution of Congo is not paralyzed. You need, in order to get a good position in Congo, you need to show how much you hate Tutsis. That is, can't work. So we need to make sure that we bring cohesion again. And then we will stop all these external invasion, as an excuse. We end that. Thank you so much for your time. I need to wrap up.
Mobutu is the one who took Tutsis, Congolese nationality away when Congo was invaded by Rwanda. Mobutu is the one who took that away. So
Professor,
I'm surprised.
Unfortunately,
okay,
we're out of time.
That's a different. Yes, we'll talk about this at a different time.
But I want to thank both of you for doing such a great job of contextualizing complicated events, for all the work that Bethany Christian Services is doing to help new Americans with their adjustment here in Michigan. And I think one thing that is productive out of the talks that you're having with each other is that it gives our students at University of Detroit Mercy a sense that Africa is not a monolith, that a giant country like the Congo is incredibly complicated because of ethnic and economic histories. And if you want to learn more about these things, please take our Modern African History course next semester so you can understand some of these complexities and how they're being talked about, and then also the ways that we're interacting with them on a daily basis. So thank you so much, gentlemen. I really appreciate it. For those of you, I realize the chat function was disabled, but if you do have any questions, I'm happy to forward them to our panel later. We appreciate you, and we hope that you have a good night, and see you all on campus.
Good. Thank you so much.